Hey everybody, it's me and I'm here with an overview of next month's Great Artist lesson. We will be continuing our American Artist series for our 3rd through 5th graders. And this next month we are going to be learning and teaching about Jackson Pollock. Now I have to tell you a little secret. Of course, I'm like a lot of people and the kids will be like this too. I look at Jackson Pollock and I go, oh my gosh, what a mess. But one of the coolest things that I discovered by kind of reading through this lesson and looking at it was Jackson Pollock was all about the freedom of movement and the fact that he used his entire body, and that it allowed him, his body basically was the art, because it allowed that freedom of movement allowed the artist rather than the brush to do the work. And I thought that was just so cool. And that's kind of where we start the lesson. So I'm going to give a little bit overview of the lesson, talk about the project like I said, but we start the lesson kind of talking about this concept of an artist, his art or their art is the fact that their body is creating the art, not necessarily what's on the canvas. We do as we always do when we talk about them as a child, and the fact that Jackson Pollock grew up in Cody, Wyoming, and he moved to Arizona and then to California. Yes, he was a California boy, and he attended Manual Arts High School in Los Angeles. So he's a homegrown artist, as it were. He attended this high school. It used to be a completely like a trade school, like a specific art school. Now it's a mainstream high school. But he was a little bit of a rebel. He really didn't like to conform to things, and because of this radical attitude that he got expelled twice from school. Once he was expelled the second time, he was out. He was done, and he hopped on a train and he went to New York City to live with his brother. He went to New York City and to attend and, of course, pursue his art career because he had decided he wanted to be an artist at 18. And he attended Art Students League, but he was there during the Depression, the Great Depression. And as it was in the Great Depression, it was hard to make money. It was hard to find a job. So he did whatever he could to pursue his love of art. And he took odd jobs all over town. And one of the odd jobs that he had was he was a maintenance man at a museum. So we talk about how he got himself to New York and really started his artistic endeavors. His art throughout the years evolved, not to what a lot of us know today, the splattered paint everywhere, but for a while there, he was influenced by some pretty famous artists, and in fact, you can see that in his artwork. There is a time frame that's put together on one of the presentations, and if you look at that time frame, it really shows how his art evolved over time. And of course, one of those pieces of work that you look at, it's called The Moon Woman. It is greatly and significantly was influenced by Picasso, and you can see it when you look at it. So we talk about how his art has evolved, and then we ask them to take a look at one of his artworks, one of our provided prints, and kind of look at it, and note what they'll notice is as his artwork has evolved, it went away from shape and figure and it went into no figuration at all. So we ask them to look at it, we have a little conversation about it, and then we get into what he is most famous for, which is what's called drip painting or action painting. Some people would call it a controlled accident. It is where an artist stands over a canvas and pours paint and splashes paint, and the shapes and figures that you see in the paint kind of change right before your eyes. So we talk about really what he's famous for. But some people look at it and they just see a mess. They look at this work, go like, really, this is art? Someone paid millions of dollars for this. So we tell a little story about Mr. Pollock here, and there is a written out story for you. You can paraphrase it if you'd like, but if you read it verbatim, I timed it. It takes a little less than 2 minutes, or about 2 minutes long, to read this story. And the story is just about how he was invited to this her name is Peggy Guggenheim, very famous name. She had a salon, a spring salon, and she invited artists, and he was one of them. And a very famous artist and critic came by, and it was one of these art shows where they had critics coming and judges coming, and this very famous artist just stood there and just kept looking at this painting and going, "What is this? This isn't art," as many people do when they look at Pollock. But he could not take his eyes off of it. Just couldn't take his eyes off of it, and it was kind of a pivotal moment for Pollock because, in the end, because it was so thought-provoking, and because you just couldn't understand what you were looking at, people would just sit there and stare at it. And ultimately, from this art show, he got his own and his very first private art show, his own personal art show. And after we tell the story, we go in and talk about how while the art may look like it's undisciplined, it's deliberate. He made those choices. The way he stood over a canvas, the way he poured the paint, the way he splashed the paint, the way he used different utensils and devices to put the paint onto the canvas. It was all very deliberate. But the thing about his art is that it's highly intellectual. So if you like Pollock, you are a very smart person, I guess, is what they're saying. But it's a highly intellectual form of art. And I thought this was a really cool concept, was that the kind of painting Pollock was famous for was highly intellectual. An observer must understand and accept the idea that the act of painting itself is the subject matter of these works. It's not, again, not the paint, but the act which it took to put that paint on the canvas. I thought it was really cool. That's just me. Anyways, we go on to talk about how he applied that paint and the tools that he used and his expression and how it was random. And then we get into the end of his life. And sometimes fame isn't enough. He was a very lucky artist because he was famous in his lifetime. Well, many artists do not become famous until they're already dead, but he, in his lifetime, had a lot of fame and notoriety as an artist. But unfortunately, with all that fame and notoriety, he suffered from depression and ultimately alcoholism. And he had a car accident because he was driving drunk. And at the age of 54, I believe, I want to say 54, at the age of 54, he died as a result of a car accident while driving drunk. And that was the end of his life. Gone too soon, but his art is forever here, influencing people. And it remains one of the most important contributions to 20th century art. So, we talk about his art, and then we get into the project itself. We ask the kids, knowing what they know about his art, how would they describe it? And then we ask them to think about themselves energetically interacting with their own personal art. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to create their own Pollock-esque type of art piece. Now, what they're going to be given is a shirt box. Sounds weird, but they're going to be given a shirt box. They're going to be given a small 7x6 piece of art paper, some small paint brushes, which are going to be put into some paint cups that will be loaded up with paint. So these small paint brushes of tempera paint, and they are, that's it, I think. Is that everything? Yep, that's everything. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have them put their name on the back of the paper. Then we're going to take them outside because this is an outside project. We're going to have them put their name on it. We're going to have them place that paper inside a shirt box because paint's going to go everywhere and we want them to paint inside the shirt box. And this will make sense in a second. So we're going to have little containers set up with paint in them and a brush in each container. The brush stays with the container because here's the idea. Everybody's going to share paint. You're going to trade. I want the purple. I want the red. I want the green, whatever it is. And we are going to have them express themselves by splashing and, flicking their paint onto their paper. Now, a very important note that we want to make sure that they understand is that they're going to hold the paintbrush over the paper. They are not to touch the paintbrush to the paper. If they touch the paintbrush to the paper, it will change the look of it. So they're holding the paintbrush over the paper. We do not want them to make big careless movements, no arm movements. The way that they want to move is just move their wrist very slightly, move the wrist around. If they start doing the arm movements, then there's paint everywhere. So we want them to make little tiny movements, picking up paint, trading colors, layering on more paint. They can put as much paint as they want on there. It may take longer to dry, but they can put as much paint as they want on there, but it's all about expressing themselves and getting that paint on there and making shapes and movements and having their eyes kind of gaze in different parts of the painting itself. Now, here's something a little interesting about this particular project. This project is going to be used in February's project. They are going to be having an opportunity where they create a piece of artwork where they themselves will be gazing at their own artwork. We don't need to share that with them. It'll be a happy little surprise that they'll have in February. But this particular piece of art that they make it's a twofer. It goes into another project, which is kind of cool. And you'll have to tune back in February to learn about that. So once they've done that, we need to lay it out. It might take a while for it to dry. We'll have to explain that to the teachers that they may take a while to dry, but I think it'll be worth it once they see their expressiveness that is there on their paper. And that is next month's lesson and project. Of course, if you have any questions or comments or concerns, by all means, you drop me an email, pick up the phone, send me a text, whatever it is you need. I am here, and I hope to see you in the hallways. Good luck, everyone, and happy creating.